Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at Reaching and Teaching International Ministries, RTIM for short. You send over some interesting stuff on them, and I'm curious to see what makes them tick, especially their approach to missions.
Yeah, their approach is pretty unique.
Yeah, it seems like they're all about empowering local churches.
That's right. They're deeply rooted in that belief that the local church is the absolute key to sustainable growth
Right.
and discipleship. They're not about dropping in and doing things for people. It's more about equipping and empowering those local leaders to build and grow healthy churches right there in their own communities.
That makes a lot of sense, I'm seeing here, that they're really committed to this idea of meeting the needs.
For discipleship,
Yeah.
healthy churches, leadership training, and theological education around the world. Can you unpack that a little more for me and for our listener, of course? What exactly does theological education even look like in this setting? Great question. In this context, theological education is all about giving local leaders a solid grounding in the Bible and Christian teachings. It's about equipping them to understand and apply Scripture so they can teach and lead their congregations effectively. They also focus on the practical side of ministry, things like leadership skills, conflict resolution, and how to preach engaging sermons.
So it's not just about hitting the books.
Yeah.
It's about really giving them the tools to lead their communities.
Precisely. And this is a key distinction because a lot of mission organizations might focus primarily on direct aid, providing food, not water, or medical care, which is all incredibly important work. But RTIM is taking a different approach. They believe that lasting change comes from within these communities. If you equip the leaders, then they can guide their communities towards self-sufficiency and spiritual growth.
I'm seeing this quote here in their material, and it seems to back up what you're saying. We are passionate about seeing the gospel spread around the world through healthy local churches, led by biblically qualified pastors. The local church is God's chosen means for raising up his disciples. We exist to meet the great need for deep discipleship, healthy churches, leadership training, and theological education around the world. It really does seem like they're in it for the long haul, focusing on that lasting impact rather than quick fixes.
Absolutely. And when they say biblically qualified pastors, what they mean is they want leaders who deeply understand and adhere to the teachings of the Bible. RTIM believes that a pastor's deep understanding and commitment to Scripture is absolutely vital to sound leadership and really forms the bedrock of a healthy church.
Okay, so they've got this strong theological foundation, but I'm curious about how they actually put this belief into action. It looks like they have a pretty multi-pronged approach to achieving their goals. They list things like long-term missionary mobilization, short-term theological training trips, strategic church partnerships, and even ministry internships.
Yes, it is a multifaceted approach, but each piece works together really strategically. Let's start with the long-term missionary mobilization. This is about sending people into the field for an extended period, really immersing them in the culture. These missionaries build deep relationships and gain a nuanced understanding of the culture they're serving in. It's much more than just teaching. It's about living and walking alongside the local people.
That makes total sense, but it reminds me of a friend who went to teach in India. He said the language barrier was so tough at first, but the relationships he built were absolutely life-changing. So I imagine RTIM is really intentional about preparing these missionaries for all that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. They invest heavily in language acquisition, cultural sensitivity training, and conflict resolution skills. It can be challenging, but the impact of that deep immersion is undeniable. It allows for real trust and understanding to be built over time. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have those short-term theological training trips. Think of those, these concentrated bursts of knowledge and skill building.
Okay, so for someone who may not be super familiar with this world, what does that theological training look like on one of those trips? What kind of skills are they focusing on?
Well, they're highly tailored. It's the specific needs of the region and the participants. It could involve teaching on biblical interpretation, practical leadership skills, or even strategies for evangelism in their cultural context. The goal is to equip these local pastors and leaders with the tools they need to effectively minister to their own communities.
That's fascinating. It's like they're meeting people where they're at and giving them just what they need to thrive. Okay, so we've got the long-term immersion, we've got the concentrated training trips. What about those strategic church partnerships? You mentioned those before. And they really jumped out at me. What are those all about?
Yes. This is where I think RTIM really shines. They're all about collaboration. They work to connect churches in the U.S. with churches abroad, creating these incredible networks of support and resource sharing.
So it's like a two-way street where churches that have more can share with churches that have less.
Precisely. One example I came across was a partnership that connected churches in the U.S. with pastors in rural Africa, providing those pastors with resources for leadership development. It's a beautiful model of shared responsibility and mutual learning. They also facilitate partnerships between churches in different parts of the world. So everyone involved is both giving and receiving.
That is beautiful. And it sounds like those partnerships are really making a difference. I'm looking at this quote from one of the partner churches. Wow, listen to this. Our church loves reaching and teaching, their robust theological training, and church-centered approach to missions, paired with their pastorally wise and servant-hearted staff, gave our students an incredible summer. You can really feel the enthusiasm and gratitude there, can't you?
Absolutely. It's not just impacting the individuals who participate, it's sending ripples throughout the entire church community. Here's another quote that illustrates that ripple effect. Our partnership with RTIM has awakened a heart for missions in our members. We have learned a great deal about serving and teaching cross-culturally, and we look forward to contributing at another teaching site. As God opens the opportunity, it's creating this contagious passion for missions, both locally and globally.
I love that. It's like RTM isn't just focused on sending people out. They're cultivating this whole culture of missions within the churches themselves. It really is about building that foundation for long-term sustainable growth, exactly like you were saying before.
Exactly. And that's where those ministry internships come in. They provide hands-on practical experience for folks who might be considering long-term missions or ministry work. It's a chance to test the waters, so to speak, and see if that kind of commitment resonates with their calling.
So it's like a bridge between short-term involvement and a full-fledged commitment to missions.
That's a great way to put it. It gives people a taste of what it's really like to serve in that cross-cultural context and helps them discern whether or not it's the right path for them.
Wow. They've really thought this through. I mean, they're covering all the bases, sending those experienced missionaries, equipping local leaders, fostering these incredible partnerships, and giving people a way to try it out before they dive in head first. This is seriously impressive stuff. But this is where I know our listeners are probably thinking, this all sounds amazing, but where do I fit into all of this?
Yeah, right. I bet they are. And that's the beauty of it all, really. RTIM offers so many different ways to engage, no matter your interests or resources. Let's say you're really feeling drawn to that short-term experience, getting your boots on the ground, and contributing your skills to those training sessions. Well, you can do that.
Or maybe you're feeling that pull towards something more long-term, something that really immerses you in another culture.
Yeah, RTM has you covered there, too. They have opportunities for long-term missions where you can join one of their international teams and really commit to working alongside a community.
And what about those of us who can't just pick up and travel across the world, say someone with a family or other commitments here at home?
That's completely understandable. But remember, it all starts with that local church. You can partner with your own church in their missions efforts. Maybe they support missionaries financially, or perhaps they're involved in local outreach programs. There's so much you can do right where you are.
That's so encouraging. And of course, there's always the option of supporting RTM financially.
Right. Absolutely. Financial contributions are vital to keeping all of this work going. Those training trips, the resources for local churches, the support for long-term missionaries. Every bit counts.
It's incredible to see an organization that really makes it possible for anyone to get involved with missions in a way that fits their life. They're not just talking the talk, they're making it happen.
And that speaks volumes about their understanding that missions is not a one-size-fits-all endeavor. It's about finding your place in the larger tapestry of God's work around the world. We each have something unique to offer.
Beautifully said. So to recap for our listener, RTIM is all about empowering local churches to spread the gospel through discipleship. Healthy churches, training leaders, and theological education, they're impacting lives with those long-term missionaries, those impactful training trips, strategic partnerships between churches, and even giving people a chance to try it out through those internships.
It's truly remarkable to see the ripple effect of their work. They're not just impacting individuals, they're transforming entire communities and strengthening that global church as a whole.
You know, it's easy to think of missions as something out there, something that other people do. But what RTM shows us is that it all starts right here, in our own communities.
That's such an important point. We often overlook the potential of our own local churches to be launching pads for global impact.
I know I've learned so much today.
Yeah.
And I bet our listeners feeling the same way. As you reflect on everything we've uncovered, consider this. How might you play a part in supporting the work of RTM and the broader mission of the global church? Maybe it's a short-term trip. Maybe it's a financial gift. Or maybe it's a renewed commitment to supporting your local church's missions efforts.
Whatever it may be, I encourage you to explore those possibilities. You can find out more on the RTM website. They have information about their programs, partnership opportunities, and all the ways you can get involved.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into RTM. We hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as we did. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.